Right now on Denver 7 News at 8 o'clock on Local 3, it is a weather action day here as snow is making its way across the metro. It's just some light flakes, but it could make for a wet morning drive. So we'll get you where you need to go safely this morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Nicole Brady. The winter weather is moving in right in time for the morning commute. So Jason will look at any of the roads that are getting wet right now. First, let's get to Lisa Hidalgo. Not as bad as we were thinking a while back that this might be, right?
Very typical this time of year. When you look a week out, the models could say like 25 inches of snow.
Yeah.
And it's happened before, but not with this one. It definitely fizzled out, which is, I think, good news, especially for those that are trying to get out of town for spring break. Here's the view from Boulder this morning. You can see there on Pearl Street where things are starting to get a little bit wet. It depends on the neighborhood. Some neighborhoods nice and dry at the bus stop. Others are going to see a light mix and some wet roads. Will be in the 20s this morning, mid to even upper 30s by the time your kids that are heading off to school today that aren't on spring break get home. We'll see also a couple of winter weather advisories continue through late afternoon, early evening. That includes pretty much all of Douglas and Jefferson counties, so a little bit heavier that snow south and west of Denver. Here in town, here within the next couple of days, we're going to see likely about 1 to 2 inches. Much heavier down to the south and through the Sangre de Cristos where we have some winter storm warnings. Take a quick look at Futurecast and how things will start to fill in a bit more here, especially south and west of Denver by it looks like mid-morning. That's right around 10:30. Now this is actually all going to clear up tonight. We'll see another round tomorrow, so we've got 2 days where it's going to be a little wet and chilly and definitely windy. We'll take a closer look at those winds, Jason, coming up.
And overall, the drive isn't too bad. Just wet in some areas, dry in most places for us this morning. Out to the west side of town is where it's wet. You can see a little bit here on I-70. Same thing on parts of 6th Avenue. Out here in Golden, Highway 93, parts of C-470 are wet. And obviously to the west of this, we are wet. Take a look at the drive, though, out in the Denver Tech Center. Bone dry for us here at Orchard. Not seeing any travel time delays down here for us. You can see that on the overall map. Looks pretty good. A little bit of slow traffic on I-76 and I-25. We have a couple problems on Highway 85 way to the north of town by Gilcrest and Platteville where we have some restrictions from some crashes up that way. We also have this westbound side of I-Lift just closed west of I-225, basically between Xanadu and Vaughan Way, and you're going to be sent down to Yale to get around it. Yale or Mississippi are good ways to get around that closure here this morning as we're doing that waterline break. The rest of the drive doesn't look too bad. Out to the west side of town, been monitoring the conditions just going up into the foothills. Veronica Acosta has been checking out those conditions for us. All right. Veronica Acosta has been checking out the conditions for us out there to the west side of town as, take a look. Let's get a look from.
We have been here all morning long and that snow is still coming down and kicked off this morning right around 5 a.m. as a rain snow mix. But those flakes are definitely coming down, sticking to the ground a little more earlier in the morning. Now it's turning into a bit more of a slushy mix, but out on the actual roadways, you're gonna see them wet, they are damp. Again, not much snow accumulation on there just yet, but at some point it will start accumulating. We had a warm weekend, so that's a big part of it. But if we move up just a little, what you are going to see here is that fog slowly but surely moving in. You're looking at I-70 here behind me near the Morrison area. Off into the mountains, you're going to see a lot more of that fog. It seems to be, the visibility rather, seems to be deteriorating in that area. So if you're waking up, commuting, you're going to head off into the mountains as part of your spring break trip, just be aware that that might be something you're going to run into. Guys, back to you.
And as the storm continues, you can get updates 24/7 by downloading the free Denver 7 Plus app on your favorite streaming device.
Well, tomorrow marks a painful day for our Colorado community. It has been 1 year now since 10 lives were taken at a Boulder King Superstore.
Starting tonight, the Table Mesa location will be closed to the public out of respect for those who lost their lives. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon joins us now. And Colette, all King Supers and City Market stores will be marking the day with a moment of silence.
Yeah, and that moment of silence is planned for 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. It's around the same time as the shooting started here at the King Supers off of Table Mesa in Boulder. Now that pause is a chance to honor the lives that were lost on March 22nd of last year. But it's hard to really believe that it's been a year since a gunman started shooting at people in the parking lot and then moved into the store. Boulder police officer Eric Talley was one of the victims and the first officer to respond to the scene during the shooting, saving lives as he gave his own for his community. Among the victims were 2 King Supers employees and 7 others ranging in age from 20 to 65. The president of King Soopers says closing the store is a way to give employees the space needed to continue navigating the healing process. The store in Boulder just reopened to the public a little more than a month ago after being redesigned. Inside is a mural done by a Boulder artist over the course of 3 months who says the work was cathartic and hope it brings employees and customers some kind of comfort.
Once I finish a painting and it's hanging and it's appreciated, it's no longer my painting. It's now appreciated and part of the community. So it's hopefully continues to gift the community for what it's meant.
Definitely a gift to this community. You can see that mural right now behind me inside of this King Soopers. Now, those with King Soopers do say there are also plans for a remembrance tree garden on the west side of the store where there will be trees planted for each of the victims. The store will be closed starting tonight at 11. It'll reopen at 6 in the morning on Wednesday. Live in Boulder. Colette Bortle on Denver 7.
It will be a hard day. Colette, thank you so much. Denver 7 News will have team coverage of the remembrance on air and on our website, thedenverchannel.com, and the Denver 7 Plus app. A man who live streamed the shooting and refused to leave when police told him to will face trial this summer. Dean Schiller faces obstruction charges. Over the course of 90 minutes, police say Schiller ignored about 60 different requests to leave the crime scene. Schiller claimed he was a journalist but refused to go to the media staging area. His trial is set for August 2nd.
Meanwhile, community members donated more than $6.5 million after the shooting, and our partners at the Denver Post are taking a closer look at how that money was used in the year following the event. Most of it is going to the families of the 10 victims. Donations went to 2 groups. The Colorado Healing Fund collected more than $4.7 million, and it's distributed all but $570,000 to other nonprofits, including more than $3 million for the victims and their families. The Community Foundation collected more than $1.7 million. It has distributed all of its money to other nonprofits, including $957,000 intended for the victims. Both groups also gave sizable donations to the Boulder Strong Resource Center, a nonprofit offering counseling and other mental health services.
Taking a live look at Lviv in western Ukraine right now. The city is a key outpost as people make their way out of the country and into Poland. Now in its 4th week, the Russia-Ukraine war has displaced more than 10 million people.
The war is also having a significant impact on the price of basic goods around the world, and we've just learned President Biden will host a meeting with oil, banking, and other major companies in an effort to reduce the cost for American families, all before he heads to Europe to pledge support to NATO allies. ABC's Ian Pannell has more.
Overnight, more airstrikes on Kyiv, again hitting civilian sites. In separate incidents, a shopping mall was hit, killing at least 8. Others were rescued from the rubble. Earlier in the day, another Russian missile strike devastating another apartment building in a residential neighborhood in the capital. The civilian death toll soaring across the country mercilessly. Mariupol's been the hardest hit of all cities as the Russians stop at nothing to try to take it. A number of sites clearly sheltering civilians have been hit, with over 1,000 missing just from 2 locations. There's been heavy fighting in the city as the Russians advance there, overnight issuing an ultimatum demanding Ukrainian military surrender Mariupol and retreat. But this morning, an advisor to the mayor refusing point blank to surrender. But the situation on the ground there remains dire. Amid unconfirmed reports, Russian troops are now forcibly deporting some of the residents of the city to Russia.
Russia has done nothing but escalate attacks on civilian infrastructure. It couldn't be worse. So certainly that would be another escalation.
Meanwhile, a new report from the Institute for the Study of War saying that Ukrainian forces have defeated the initial Russian campaign in the war, adding that Russia no longer has the forces needed to take and hold the Ukrainian capital, warning the war could become a bloody stalemate. But with his land invasion largely stalled, there are fears that Putin will double down, expanding and intensifying indiscriminate bombardment to degrade and destroy Ukrainian towns and cities. Now the Russian Defense Ministry claiming it's used hypersonic missiles in their aerial bombardments, but US officials have yet to confirm that. The impact on civilians is simply catastrophic. The UN saying that 10 million civilians have been displaced either within Ukraine or forced to flee the country altogether. Hundreds, likely thousands, have been killed. And this stark image of strollers hits home the impact on children. 112, one for every child killed in Russia's war. But this is a country of resistance. In Russian-occupied Kherson in southern Ukraine, protesters again standing up to Russian military vehicles, chanting, "Go home," forcing the Russian trucks to retreat from the crowd. Ukrainian President Zelensky speaking before the Israeli Knesset, appealing for weapons. In an interview, Zelensky saying he's open to negotiations to end this war, but warning of the consequences if they don't succeed.
If these attempts fail, that would mean that this is a third world war.
It's now 8:10 and a Denver 7 weather action day as some light snow starting to fall up and through the foothills and mountains is making the roadways wet. We'll see some down here too. Now over the next couple of days, totals are not going to be super impressive, maybe 1 to 2 inches here in town, even lighter up north near Fort Collins, but we'll pick up a bit more in the foothills, Jason, but a pretty weak spring storm for us. We can typically get really heavy March snows.
Yeah, I've been in some of those and they haven't been fun. Right now we have a good drive overall. It's just wet in some areas. It's dry here in downtown Littleton, looking right down Main Street towards Santa Fe, which would be on the other side of the buildings over there. So a good drive for us overall. We'll take a look at some of those travel times. And there's one problem in Aurora you want to know about. That's coming up in just a minute.
Water is in short supply for a Colorado mountain community. The warning Empire is issuing to residents.
Also, outdoor summer concerts are right around the corner. We do have a warning, though, about who and where you buy your tickets from.